Gorgeous ones, welcome to the Jaclyn Shaw Show. We are diving straight in here today. I have Noomi Natan with me from The Power Kind. And gosh, Noomi, I feel like I don't even really know how to introduce you in this moment because I feel like we've been on a journey together. We've been in mentorship together. You've worked with me as a one-to-one client. And also our relationship has grown and evolved beyond that work that we've done together. And I mean, the conversations that you and I have exchanged more as of late have been so, I think, powerful healing, expanding for both of us. So I'm excited to have you here and to dive in today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So when I first asked Noomi on to have this conversation, she sent me a message, and it was after reading or listening to my book, Spiritual Smackdown. And she was like, "Oh, there was a part in here that I'm like, oh, like there's something I want to bring forward to you." And I was like, "Okay, can we bring this forward on the podcast?" So we're going to dive in there. Noomi, I'm going to let you share.
Okay, so first up, I want to just say that I felt nervous, but also excited that you're like, don't tell me beforehand. I'm like, you might not like what I have got to say. And you're like, no, bring it. And so for me, having, like 18 years of leadership coaching, what I really admire is that.
Mm.
And I'm not surprised by it, but a lot of people will say, give me feedback. And they don't mean it.
Yeah, true.
And I trust that, first of all, hopefully I'll deliver this in a useful way, that not just like useful, interesting for you, but also for anyone listening. But also I trust that you will show up with curiosity. And I think a lot of people, when, they're told stuff, show up with, let me defend my identity. And I just want to say, like, I wouldn't share this publicly if I didn't know that about you, that you have something rare, that for some magic is happening in you, that you're grounded enough in yourself and God, that you can show up and listen to things with curiosity.
Well, thank you for this. And thank you for introducing it this way, because now before we actually get to you sharing what you were like coming into my messages to share that day, I do think that this is like so important to state here. Like, I am definitely someone who very much looks at life from a place of curiosity and what is available for me here and what's available, not just for me, then for, my audience, my community, my clients, because I do believe that sharing the truth about our lives and our lived wisdom and our growth is like, this is what it's all about. Like, this is our holy work. And I mean, you and I have a relationship that we have where I know the way that God moves through you. I know the way God moves through me. And so I am in full trust within this, that no matter what you bring to the table and have to say, because I haven't heard. So this is the thing, is like, I haven't heard. I literally was like, don't bring it to me. Like, I want to record this for a podcast because I just immediately felt there's something in it, not just for me, but also for you listening right now. And I didn't want it to get filtered any way through. I've heard this before. So I want this conversation to be real, raw, honest, opening. And one thing that I will also say, because I feel like this may come up through the conversation we're about to have, there's two things that I often say. Multiple truths get to coexist. Two things get to be true at once. And also, my truth grows and evolves. And so as I grow and evolve, my truth grows and evolves. How I look at an experience grows and evolves. And that is like part of it. Like, that's the way it's meant to be. Sometimes we hold on to, well, this is what I said 10 years ago, so it's what I have to like say today. It's what I have to believe. And it's like, is there room? Is there room to look at, oh yeah. What I do know is it's a piece coming from when you read my book. And I actually talk about this at the end of my book, that there was a spot and there was a time in my life where I believed God was testing me. And that felt like a real truth for me. It felt like God was testing me. And that supported me in my growth at the time. That really like allowed me to show up in the ways that I did. But then later on, I was like, I actually don't believe that God tests us. Like, and there's a different thing that I believe now. And so it's like giving myself permission to like almost contradict myself within my book. It's like, because that's part of life. So that's what I'm
So
going to open with, and I'm going to hand it back to you.
I love it. So many things to share. Okay, let me go for the thing that came up for me that I thought I'll share this in private. So it is
In
from
private or very publicly right now?
let's just share it. Let's just share it in public. So there is a part in the book where you said that the first time Craig left was for me. If anyone hasn't read the book, read the book. I think what's magical about your book, and people could misunderstand and think it's a book about how you get over, your partner being unfaithful. And it's really, I think it's a book about finding yourself and finding your truth. And what I love about the book and what is unusual about your book is that you share your self-talk. You share your mind talk. You share what you're thinking and feeling throughout. So we get to be with you and the ups and the downs and the rawness of that, which, we need more of that, because we can all relate to it, whether we've been through this or something else. So there is a bit where you said the second time Craig left, it was for you, the reader. And I was listening to it, and I also have the physical copy, but I was listening to it and I thought, don't buy that. And this was so I'm not a relationship therapist. I'm a coach. I do leadership work, but I'm trained in family constellations. It is the thing that have influenced me, probably of all the things I've looked at over 2 decades. It's the thing that have influenced me the most. And so I vividly remember a module that was about relationship dynamics. Well, it was all about relationship dynamics, but it was about, for some reason, we were talking about infidelity. And I remember our teacher saying, and this course was really cool. We had 7 teachers. So we had different teachers for different modules to give us different input. And the teacher saying, if someone's is unfaithful in a marriage, has an affair or does something, it's actually very good for the other person also to do something wrong, something guilty. So in Constellations, we talk about guilt and innocence, right? I'm trusting that whoever's listening has quite a sophisticated mind. So you got to, really listen for the depth of it. So as humans, we're wired to belong to a tribe. And one of the ways that we are conditioned and we can figure out to belong to tribes for our survival is we feel whether we're guilty or innocent. We feel innocent when we obey the rules. I did good. I'm a good girl. I'm a good boy. We obey the rules. We do as society expects. And we feel guilty when we're naughty and we don't follow the rules and we're being rebellious. And, that instinct, depending on where you grow up, the stronger that conditioning might be, because the rules of that community, that religion, that society is bound on people adhering to these rules. So we all have some kind of wiring in that. And so when someone is unfaithful in a marriage, they're guilty, right? They did something you're not supposed to do. Now, if you don't do anything bad back, you are then innocent. And it makes for a very uneven relationship, because the other one will always be guilty and the other one will always be innocent. And then you're no longer really a match. The burdens, the things we're bringing are no longer a match, unless you already brought something that was heavy into that marriage. And so I remember the teacher saying, well, actually, the advice is not just to forgive. The advice from Constellation, or the thinking behind it, is you might think of doing something back, something that is not as bad, so it doesn't escalate. We're not talking war. We're not talking making things worse, but something so you're also a little bit guilty. And then what blew my mind was there was a participant, one of my fellow students on the course, and she said, oh, I experienced that in my family. And so she had some relatives, and they were around the same time infidelity happening in 2 different parts of the family. And it was also both the men that were unfaithful. And in both cases, the man was unfaithful. And the one case, the woman very quickly forgave and wife took him back. The other one, she was like, forget it. But she took most of their money, built a house on the property, a house that was so close to the other house, it could never be sold as a separate property. Basically, it was a bad investment, bad use of money, bad, guilty, right? And she lived in it for, I don't know, a year or something like that. And then they found each other. The first one that just forgave, their marriage didn't last. The second one, where she did bad things also with the money, they managed to succeed. And so what I was thinking when I read this piece is like, well, this probably saved it for you and for your marriage. Because first up, by you saying, I'm doing this for you, you're choosing, first of all, you're choosing to learn something. You're like, there's going to be something to tell, and you're not going to tell a shitty story about yourself. So that means you're going to learn something. So first up, you're choosing that I'm gonna learn. Like, this is not gonna be in vain. Like my prayer is always like, something good will come of this. Nothing's ever wasted, right? You're choosing, I'm gonna learn from this. I'm gonna grow. This is gonna be worthwhile. But the other bit is that constellation bit. Writing a book about infidelity. I mean, and I know you have received all kinds of rap for that, right? And talking about it even before you wrote the book, talking about it publicly, that is also being guilty. That is naughty. That is not what society expects. And so in that way, suddenly you are guilty too, because you exposed it. You exposed the things you're supposed to, if you want to stay in it, you sweep it under the carpet and pretend it didn't happen, and you don't talk about it. And you didn't do that.
Oh, okay. This I will absolutely tell you. I was quite fascinated about where you were going to go with this, because there was part of me, and again, we're just going to be open here. There was part of me when you said it, I thought I knew where you were going to go. It's not where you went. There was then part of me that was resisting what you were saying. And now I've came to the place within, I mean, how long have we been talking here? 10 minutes where I'm like, this tracks. This feels true. Like, oh, I get it. And I feel like I do want to take you all on a bit of the journey of what came up for me in the last 10 minutes as I sat here. And this is exactly why I wanted to do this live. Is the first thing is I thought I knew. So this is what we tend to do often in our lives and our business. It's like, okay, she's going to bring something forward to me. So the sentence in my book is something along the lines of, I mean, you already nailed this, but that the first time he left, it was for me. The second time he left was for you, the reader. Immediately when you said that, I was like, well, I can already see how the second time was also for me. I like went into my knowing, I went into my mind. I was like, well, of course it was also for me, because the thing that I felt immediately of why it was for me is the first time when, so my husband left, came back when my daughter was born, following my timeline where I had given God the deadline, the timeline being like, we only have a chance at reconciling here if he's home by the time our daughter's born. And so from there, I mean, the next 3 weeks were like hell. Like the next 3 weeks, I was like, okay, God, you like answered on my timeline, but this is like miserable. And so when he left 3 weeks later, that's when I actually went into such a deeper surrender with God, a deeper faith, a deeper, like, actual, like, real surrender without that, like, little energetic manipulation there. So I thought that's where you were first going to go. I was like, okay, yep, I can see how it was also for me and for the readers and for this. And I was like, I already have this figured out, was kind of my energy. I'm not going to lie. Then when you came in with the conversation around like the guilt and the innocence and like doing something naughty and doing something bad, my whole body was like, no, I disagree with this. And I was also open to listen to you and hear you, because I'm like, I know that there's something in your work, which I'm so fascinated about that I want to get to in a moment. But I was resistant because what immediately came up for me was a story my friend told me about her husband who was unfaithful. Sorry, her friend's husband who was unfaithful. So this was, I was getting this like secondhand, but she's like, then they made a pact that she had a hall pass. And she's like, and that was like the only thing that brought her into her power. But then she used that as a threat all the time. Well, maybe I'm going to go on my hall pass this weekend. Maybe I'm going to do this. And so that's immediately what came in for me. And I was like, no, disagree. Do not think like I needed to do something to be guilty in that way, because that, I mean, for me, and this worked in their marriage, but for me, hanging that over his head, bringing that thread in, always having that energy between us of like, one day I'm going to go do what you did to me, like, doesn't feel good. Like the eye for an eye type of energy is absolutely a no for me. So this is why, gosh, a lot can happen in 10 minutes, huh? So first I went through, I already know this. I know what she's going to say. And then I was like, oh, don't know what she's going to say. Resist to what she's saying because it doesn't feel like truth for me, to the end of being like, oh yeah, absolutely. Writing the book wasn't just for the reader. Writing the book was for me as well. And writing the book is a naughty thing to do. I mean, this was the biggest thing when I share at the end of the book too, like my mentor's experience with reading the book, and where he like loved the book and then didn't love the book and then loved the wisdom but said take out the story. His biggest thing is like, Why would you want to bring this upon your husband? Why would you bring this shame into your family? Why would you want your kids to read this? Like, your kids are never going to be able to look at their dad the same. They're not going to love him the way that you think that they're going to be able to love him after this. Anyone who ever interacts with your husband, who wants to do business with your husband, if they read this book, they're not going to, like, all of these things. And I mean, I knew, and there was actually a moment when him and I were in the process of reconciling where I very clearly said, like, "I'm going to write this book, and if me writing this book is, like, a no for you, like, that's gonna be the thing that actually what keeps us separated, because this book is an absolute yes for me, and it is gonna happen."
See, but that's it. You like put the condition in early, so it wasn't hanging over him. It wasn't a threat. It was just a fact.
Yeah.
And he agreed to it. And I have to say, so many of the lessons of Constellations I found hard to accept. I started studying Constellations in 2011, and it really was a lot of stuff that has taken me time to make sense of. But there's something in the wiring that if we're too uneven, if someone always gives and the other one just receives, it creates resentment, it creates imbalance.
Be in the marriage I'm in. Well, and I'll absolutely tell you, so hearing the story that you also said about the woman who was just like, "And I just forgive," and that marriage didn't last. I mean, I said this in the book, I've said this so much publicly as well, is like, this is where I am grateful to my husband. Like, thank God when I wanted to put a Band-Aid solution on it, right at the beginning was like, "No one needs to know, and we can cover this up, and you can just come home, and we'll just be like our happy family," and, like, I've just, like, forgotten and I've forgiven it. When he said no, I mean, that put me on the whole trajectory of my own communion with God, my own stepping into my power, my own healing. But I absolutely do not think I would be married today or have the marriage I have today if I was just like, "Oh, yep, let's just like pretend that didn't happen." So I can
Yeah.
absolutely see what you're saying here. Like, if that would have been my experience, like, yeah, would not be the woman I am today, would not be having this conversation, would not be in the marriage I'm in. Okay, I want to hear more about, and I'll be so honest with you again, like, when you and I first started working together, you started to say, like, this constellation work and this family constellation work, I was like, "What is she talking about?" Like, I had no idea. So, I'd love for you to share more of that with us, but I also don't wanna just, like, shift this conversation. Like, is there, from what I just said, anything that you're feeling like, "Yeah, Jack, there's a piece here." Again, I'm, like, down to go wherever this goes, and, like, no, I don't wanna be like, "And cut off because I felt uncomfortable. Let's go a different direction."
No, I think it's, like for anyone listening, get curious. And I'm not at like, someone did something bad to me, let's go do something bad back. I'm really like, I'm all, if we could just sit in a circle and to pray for peace and just be happy, clappy together, that would be my preference. So I just want to put that in there, that my preference is forgiveness and just all being, at peace and tolerating each other and forgiving mistakes. And what I have learned through the world of constellations is everything's gotta have a space. So I want peace, but like you cannot have peace without acknowledging that there was war and there are wars. And like I'm all about the kindness, but like we have to understand our own shadow sides and the places we're not showing up kind. And if we're not willing to own that, it's fake.
Mm.
And so for me, what's really interesting is how do we give all of it a place? And it doesn't mean we have to tell the world about it. People don't have to write a book about it. There's like a million different ways that this can play out. But I think what's been really, it's a lesson that's really hard for me all the time because I for sure prefer to just go, well, I'll just self-sacrifice or I'll just be the innocent one or let's just do good always. And it's like we have to own the hard parts of us to be able to really be in our power, and we have to own our shadow. And so constellations is very much about the systemic dynamics that govern humans. And I got so mad when I sat in this training, and at one of the early modules, one of the teachers said, I was like, but free will and like personal development and just say some affirmations and all of these things. And she's like, yes. And you're not as free as you think you are. It's safe. I remember her words. It's safe to assume that you're not as free as you think you are. And by that, it's like we're conditioned by the systems we're born into, the families we're born into. all of the things that happens around us, the systems we move in. And so for me, what I'm always interested in is, like, I often talk about going from despite to because of. Like, I remember working with a male client once, and he was like, despite my father, I am, a decent man. And I was like, no, because of your father. So despite cuts off your legacy and going like, I don't want anything to do with him. Because of, it's like, yes, your father had so many shortcomings and did lots of horrible things. And we're not saying that was okay. But because of that, you chose contrast. You chose something else. Because of him, you know not what not to do. And therefore, you are consciously all the time choosing differently. We've got to honor where we come from. We cannot ignore history. And so one of the things that I find incredibly frustrating anywhere in the world is when people go, oh, organization's been through change. Let's just draw a line under it or start afresh. Oh, I'm done with this relationship. I'll just start afresh. Oh, I didn't like my parents. I'll just start afresh. It's like, no, you need to honor the roots. And then you got to look at because of rather than despite. And it might sound so simple, and it really isn't. It's a huge, massive inner shift. But when we do that, when we honor the legacy of how we're wired as humans, then actually we get more freedom. So it sounds like I'll now be bound more to my past. But actually what happens is you do become freer, because when we are going, oh, well, hello, Dad, you did it all wrong, we're actually turning towards the past and we are judging the past. And so we're facing the past. If we go, my dad was how he was, and because of him, I choose differently, we now face the future and the world opens up more.
That shift right there, as I often talk about, it's like we just look and we bring the past into the now again and again and again. And then we're creating from the past versus creating from the now frequency and versus creating from what's actually available to us. And so I love this piece. And I also want to be like, I do also want to say, tell me more. Like, it just like, that's it. Tell me more.
Well, so let me bring it to an organizational context, right? Let me bring it straight back into like corporate world, which is a lot of I've also worked with people in, that run startups and their own businesses, but I also work with a lot of people in organizations, and they come in, new leader comes into an organization and there's been mess. And they're just like, okay, we just need to move forward. Let's stop talking about the past. And they'll say something like, let's just draw a line under it. Now we'll just focus on the future. And I remember coaching someone years ago, like I learn the most always from my clients because the concepts then become real. And I could feel it. I was like, oh, please don't say that. Please don't say you'll draw a line under it. Because what I fell into was being one of the people that had been there through the last 5 years of mess, who'd been there through the whistleblowing, who'd been there through the heartache and the pain and the suffering and seeing people come and go. I fell into that and I thought, if I was one of them, and you, new leader, comes in, you're there for, 6 weeks, and then you say, okay, let's just draw a line under it. I will not feel seen. I will not feel like you're honoring what I have been holding, what I have survived through. Now, I don't want to talk about the past, but I do want you to say, thank you for all you have done. Thank you for what you've been holding. Because of your resilience, we're still here. Tell me what we need to bring forward. Tell me what we need to let go of. We're here because of you. When you look at what's still useful, when you look at the strength that has been built through that resilience, we become stronger. It's because of all of the whistleblowing. We now want to look at our people policies. Because of all of this, we are now going to do something different. Not, oh, and let's start afresh. It didn't work.
Yeah.
It's like we gain strength from building on the past rather than just pretending it never happened. Let me just start afresh.
The way that I see this, like there's 3 different energies here. It can either be like, oh, let's just like wipe our hands clean, start afresh, pretend that doesn't exist. Or let's focus on the past, which then just like focus on the past recreates in the future. Or what I feel like you're saying here is like you can honor the past, like see the because of that, honor it, and then now create in the now frequency. But that honoring piece is essential.
Yes. And it's like if you're a tree, it's like don't cut off your roots.
Yeah.
You got to put the past behind you. You don't want to keep looking at it. The past has to go behind. But then it brings us back to something you said right at the beginning, where you're like, my truth keeps evolving. The way I look at things keeps evolving. I can't remember whose book it is, but there's a guy who says your past, if you grow, your past, the way you see your past will keep changing, right? It's like how we tell the story of history changes. And it depends on which country you live in, how you talk about the different revolutions, and depends on which decade you live in. It depends, but we've got to put the past behind us, and then change only happens because we're willing to see things differently. The facts don't change. you know People had whistleblowing, some people were fired, gross misconduct happened, someone was unfaithful. That fact doesn't change, but the
Yeah.
story we tell around it, the narrative we make, the meaning we make, that gets to change, and we can put it behind us and go, what's a way that this could strengthen me? But first you got to process it. First you got to feel the feelings. First you got to be angry. You got to go through the steps. We can't just like leap into, and I don't want to be in the painful part.
Okay, I'm literally piece pulling like fragments of this conversation and things you've said that have been in different parts of this conversation and from a conversation you and I had previously, but I feel it all intertwining here. And so I'm going to try to bring it together from the pieces that are feeling it for me. And then I'm going to ask your perspective from this because I do feel like there's like a constellation work piece in here. I could be wrong, but like that's my feeling. So what you just said there is the piece of how we rewrite stories. And so I want to touch on the piece of rewriting stories. The other part that you had said was the piece around like that we all have like that we have shadows. And a conversation you and I have had privately is like, and what happens when we're so in this path of like, this is the reason why, and not willing to look at ourselves and not willing to look at the shadows. There's these elements that we rewrite the story because stories naturally just get rewritten, but I feel like there's a piece here that's almost like a protective mechanism where we rewrite the story because we're trying to control the perception because we're not actually willing to look at ourselves in the mirror. So, like, an example would be like that I could have been on this call just like not willing to like just be like so closed off to what you had to say because I was like, nope, like I was right and this is why it is and this is what happened. Like, when we're not willing to come to a
Mhm.
place, is there something within Constellation about this? Maybe not. Like when we're not willing to come to a place to look at our shadows, to be curious, to explore. And so then we're like really trying to control the story. We're rewriting the narrative so that we can control perception.
What will happen is we call it setting up. And so representatives will be chosen. Let's say you wanted to look at, you and Craig. And so a representative will be chosen for you and for Craig. And those representatives will show things often that maybe, you're like, oh, I was trying to hide that part. They will often show us our blind spots. And so Constellations is very powerful in that way because it often shows
Okay.
something that you wouldn't get to with your rational, logical mind. My hypothesis always, as a coach, is that when people come to me, probably what they're coming with is not quite the issue, because if it was, they would have solved it already. My assumption is that someone is really clever, and for whatever reason, they have an idea of what the problem is. But if that was really it, they would just have found the solution themselves. There's something else going on. And so my assumption is always there's something else that maybe could come through me, or come through in our dialogue, or come through them, that will help them see it differently. When leaders only have yes people around them, when they choose not to have coaches, when they choose not to go to therapy, when they don't have supervision, when they don't have people that disagree with them. I'll give you two examples. I just started watching, I think it was on Disney Hulu, where it was talking about Anna Wintour on Vogue, and how one of her editors that she hired was someone that she actually a lot of time disagreed with. And the beauty of what she then brings in, and she brought in things that Anna disagreed with but was necessary. And then I'm thinking of the West Wing, and the West Wing series, where the president at one stage needs a therapist, and the therapist comes in and says, no, I will not call you Mr. President. And he's like, well, like, you got it. And he's like, no, not in this space. I will not. And so it's so important to have people in your life who will tell you things you don't want to hear, but from a place of love. And I always think about, how do we build a team around us? But it requires so much courage to go places, to go, oh, I can grow through this. Like, there are people we don't want to hear it from, and there are people we can hear it from. And so this is why I said, like, it makes me believe more in you. It makes me believe more in any leader who's like, it might take me a moment. I don't know if I'll agree with you, but I'd like to hear it. And I'm not straight away going to know what I want to do with it. That's the most honest answer. Like I always say to leaders when they're going to give feedback, it's not a one conversation. Because if you're really saying something meaningful that the person doesn't know, they're going to need to have a chance to think about it. That's the only fair thing. And they need at least 24 hours, if not a week, to like move through, be annoyed with you, then go, maybe there's something here, then be curious about, like humans need a moment. And so, yes, Constellation does have a very magical process, and you can go to workshop and it does reveal blind spots. And I think we can hire people, connect with people, have friendships with people that see the world differently, and look at where we're challenged and get curious about that, and look at where we get defensive. And when we do get defensive, it's like, it's okay. Don't make yourself feel bad about it, but get curious, because there's probably something there.
That's the piece for me. It's like, and get curious, like, why am I feeling defensive? Why do I feel the need to defend myself? Why am I feeling like so triggered here? Why am I feeling closed off? Like, can I lean in there where I like want to run away, where I want to hide, where I want to control
Oh,
the narrative, where I
yes.
want to switch the story
Oh,
so I
yes.
don't have to
I don't
look
know
at my
any
own
human that doesn't think,
shit.
and I don't think, no
Do we all
matter,
have
I don't
blind
know, maybe
spots?
not Dalai Lama, but I think we all have blind
Thank
spots. And
God,
I
not
think we're
for
here to learn and to evolve. And like you said, your truth is going to keep evolving. Yes, we're all imperfect. We all have blind spots. And that's part of what makes us need each other, what makes us interesting. The contrast, if we don't get mad at the contrast, like, we get to grow.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why I ask that is because I honestly feel that this sometimes, happens where in an online space, like I lead in the online like coaching mentorship industry, and I do think that there's times where a lot of people are not willing to be the student of their own work and their own medicine and to look at their blind spots. But I also think that there gets this like interesting like client mentor dynamic at times when you know, the client's then willing to look at a mentor as if like they're not human, as if like they don't have blind spots, as if they're not also like continuing on the growth and the evolution and the expansion on their own journey and soul. And I know that was, I shared this at the end of my book and the piece I said here with like my mentor, like I was able to really see like, oh yeah, you're so human still. Like someone who I would probably put on a pedestal and think you're just like so godly and that there's like never any judgment in your body and you would never even consider that something's too shameful. It was like, oh yeah, we're all so human here and we all do have blind spots.
And a friend of mine, she's really good at this, is seeing the nuances in people. It's like, they are flawed and I didn't like what they did there, and I appreciate them for this. And I often think that we put impossible standards on leaders, humans that want to do good, and we're like, yeah, but look, they're not that good. They made a mistake over there. Look, they're not that good. And it's like, are you going to help them do more good, or are you going to pick them down for the one thing that they didn't get right? It's like, then there's other people we just love to hate. But let's help people that do a lot of good, that really set out with it, and accept that they will make mistakes. If you tell me about someone that didn't make a mistake, I've coached in so many organizations. None of them are perfect. Many of them have wonderful cultures. And there are pockets within every organization where, for whatever reason in that season, it's not nice to be. Every single organization, I have a bad story to tell and I have wonderful stories to tell. Let's not pretend it's not a fairy tale. And like, I really believe in like, let's amplify the good, but like, let people be human. Let them make mistakes and help them grow from them. Don't vilify them for it.
Well, I often share this when people come into my mentorship spaces. It's like am not perfect, and so if you expect me to be perfect, like this is the wrong space for you. And I also don't expect us to agree on anything, like, multiple truths get to coexist, so if I say something and you disagree and there's no room for us to, like, disagree and have multiple truths, like, also my spaces aren't for you because in my work, it's like, yeah, you're not meant to agree with everything I say, like, there's gonna be things that me speaking my truth leads you to your truth, but your truth being the complete opposite of mine, like, that to me is and when you're willing to express that and say, like, "Hey, I look at this from a different lens or a different viewpoint," maybe then I shift, maybe you shift, but not through convincing each other. Maybe hearing someone else's truth creates that shift, and maybe not. And maybe I continue to believe my truth and you continue to believe your truth, and they don't intersect, and we can hold that space for each other because we don't need to be right. We don't need someone else to
Absolutely.
be wrong. We don't need to,
I wish
yeah, that there's like not that
we could
agenda there.
all live side by side and going, you pray and call God this, and you pray and call
Yeah.
God that, and you go, I will never pray, and you pray and go, but there is 700 gods, and you pray and pray, but don't believe there is a God, and you go like, prayer is the root of all evil. But could we all just still live side by side and going, wow, how interesting it is that we all get to go together and listen to each other, and then we could go home and sleep in our own beds and have our own world. Like, why do we have to fight each other over it? Why don't we just go, oh, it's really rich. There's different kinds of green leaves, in the forest, and they can all get to live alongside each other. Why do we have to suffocate some of them?
Yeah, I mean, one lens for me has been recently and through a conversation I had recently, I was just, like, really came to it, and the words I kept repeating was, like, "This is so fascinating." Like, because it really was fascinating to me. I'm like, "This is so fascinating. This is so interesting." Like, I am so curious about this here because of everything we've been talking about here, it's, like, really shifting that lens into I mean, fascinating was is really often the word for me. It's like, I'm fascinated by this. I'm curious about this, and then that just, for me, really shifts the energy in where I'm, like, willing what I'm available for and the way that God then gets to, like, present things to me and move through me.
I'm always like, oh, what's the dynamic going on here? Why is it playing out like that? And when I sit with a client or when I'm with a team, I'm like, let's look at the mystery that is you. Let's look at where's expansion possible. What's a different way to look at this? And someone came to me today and had been told to have concise communication. I was like, I bet
Oh,
that's not what we need to work on. And like instantly it was like, obviously not. First of all, they would never have landed in my inbox. They were supposed to work on concise communication. That's not my genius. But it was about, projecting power. And she was like, oh, thank you for seeing that. And so I'm
yeah.
always curious about like, what is the blind spot? What is beneath the surface? And what is the mystery here that's available? And I do think we have to honor history and we have to honor the human wiring. We might, have created all kinds of fantastical things like AI, and our brain is still wired for primitive survival. And most of the time, that's the part of us in charge. And so, like, understanding that about ourselves and others, and then being curious about, oh,
Yep,
what's the laws that I'm
yep,
wired to show up obeying? And then I think you are really good at going, and it's an illusion, and it's an illusion, and it's illusion. And even when you see the illusion, doesn't mean it's easy to break it, because it takes massive courage to not do as expected and to not follow, what people would like you to do to keep the status quo. That I'm curious about, what's a version of you that's more courageous? What does courage look like for you? What's the
yeah.
next level version for you? How could we expand? Because you're here on this earth for however long. Like, let's find a way for you to be excited about possibilities.
I love the way that you shared that, and I loved even the line on its own, like, looking at the mystery of you. It's like, yeah, like, we get to look here. Alright, well, tell us, before we complete here, I want you to tell us about the power kind.
I do not know why people aren't wildly excited about kindness being the leading leadership filter and the way we make decisions. And I also know that, kindness is what makes power safe. Without kindness, power so easily becomes about control and dominance. And so power has always been the central bit. And so for me, it's like, how do I help humans that really care about being kind in the world, that would like us all to live in a kinder, better world, hold their power? Most of the people that are drawn to me are usually in that camp. There are some people that know they're powerful and would like also to feel good about the kindness, but more often It's the people that are drawn to me that are like, I do good, but I know I'm supposed to be more powerful. How do I do it in a way where I feel proud of myself when I go to sleep? I don't want to be like that person. I don't want to be like that person. I don't want to be like that person. What's a way I could do it? And I don't have the answers, but that's the movement I'm interested in. That's what I'm curious about, is how do we hold power in a way that is kind for the greater good? Not, it's not all nicey nicey, but kindness. And so that's the world I want to live in. That's what my work is about. Go to thepowerkind.com. There is a quiz that's really fun with the 4 powers that you can do. That's a super cool place to start for you to think about your own leadership and success powers. And go listen to We Are the Power Kind. By the time this gets out, We Are the Power Kind is a new podcast, and it will be live. And the whole idea is tiny little injections to get you grounded into your own power, and getting excited about how you can do more of that. So those are the 2 best places. I'm also quite a lot on LinkedIn, less so on Instagram and Facebook.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am excited for this. I am excited for the Power Kind podcast. I also was working with you when you were in the creation of the quiz. So definitely go do that quiz and tune into the podcast. We'll share all of the links below. Noomi, thank you. Thank you for being willing to come have this conversation with me, for creating with me, and for being who you are in this world. I so just value you as a client, as a friend, as someone that I'm walking with doing life and business.